Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of The Tracy Show. I am Tracy, and I am joined with my guest today, Jacob Bailey, who is running for a congressional seat here in the state of Indiana and is District number 9, I believe.
Mhm.
And before we start with Jacob, there's a ton of bills I have to pay. First of all, please like this video. We had 70 views of last week's video, and each week I want more views. So please like this video, share this video, um, just like it, because as a new show, it's really important to get that algorithm up so that YouTube can suggest this to people. So please like this video and share it on all your social platforms. Definitely want to announce that September the 24th, this channel is sponsoring a Beating the Duopoly forum. The tickets are $15. You can get those at tracymediallc.com/r-events. And that is our Facebook page, which I definitely would love for you all to like my Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter. And here's one of the most important things. Please donate to our Patreon. So despite us using a lot of free apps, it's not free. I definitely am still in need of lights and better equipment to pull off this type of podcast. So any support that you can give is appreciated. Support levels start at just $1 a month. You can also find my Patreon link at my webpage, tracymediallc.com. And I want to um, advise of a new feature we have. So I have decided to start a monthly Zoom call. That Zoom call will take place the second Saturday of each month, which means the first one coming up is October the 8th, 2022. That is by invite only. If you want a link to that meeting, email me at tracymediallc@gmail.com. It is from 11 o'clock a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Most topics are allowed, but of course, my no cursing rule will still count. We have some fun, but this will be a monthly feature that I will be doing. And again, please send an email to tracymediallc@gmail.com. Thank you, Jacob, for letting me pay all of those bills. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on here. It's so nice to be able to talk about the world we're in.
Oh, you said nice, and I'm like, I try to be hopeful. I really do try to be hopeful, but it gets worrisome sometimes. I'll put it that way. So I noticed we also have a couple of people out there watching. So if you have questions, please put them in the comment section so that I can ask Jacob. Hopefully you don't have any questions of me because this hour is not about me. It's all about Jacob. So I did mention that you're running for the Congressional District 9. So for those outside the state of Indiana or who are inside the state and don't know quite where that is, kind of explain what areas that covers.
Yeah, it's sort of like the south central part of Indiana. So it's a bit south of Indianapolis, kind of near Martinsville. Is the northern line. And then it kind of goes through the center of the southern part of the state, all the way down to the Ohio River, finishing sort of at Jeffersonville and at the river. So it's got around maybe 800,000 citizens in it in the ninth district.
Okay, and what, because I know you've run for this office before in the past. Is that
I
correct? Or
have
is this
not
your first
actually.
time?
This is
This
my
is your
first
first.
time.
I don't know
Yeah,
why I thought you ran for the office before.
that's
Okay,
okay.
so I'm going to swipe that question to the left. What made you want to run for this particular seat?
Yeah, great question. It's a number of things. I'm a teacher by trade. I'm a Montessori teacher, actually, and I'm still am. I teach every day, and so a big part of Montessori education is peace education. Maria Montessori believed a lot in promoting peace and teaching peace to children. And so I've spent my 20 plus years in the classroom teaching children about peace and how both sort of how to get along with other people, but also world peace kind of topics. I've been lucky enough to be able to teach many, many children. Um, and so I've been looking for ways to continue that work and sort of expand it and to try to reach other folks outside of my sphere. Um, and so that's probably the most driving point there. But I live in Bloomington, and so I've watched the politics of the area for a long time, and been interested and been pretty active. I view myself as an activist, and I known that the ninth district that I'm running for has been extremely conservative, and the Republicans have been winning it overwhelmingly. It's not even been close. It's been like 75-25 or so. Republican won. And the Democrats in the district, not all of them, but generally try to play in the center and try to get enough votes to actually challenge that, which I understand why a person would do that, I guess. But my campaign, I'm hoping to really put out the idea that like this is all about the long term. This is about helping people and the environment and promoting social justice and promoting peace in the long term. And so it's not only about this election. It's a long process, and I personally feel like we need to stick to our values about caring for one another and the planet and being peaceful, even if it means sometimes a short-term loss or not having as many votes up front or not having as much money. It's still worth it, and it's still the right direction to go in. So I just kind of looked at the race, and I mean, I've watched it, like I said, for years, and this time around, I felt like I certainly like the Democrat. His name is Matt Fife, and he lives in Bloomington also. Seems like a great guy, but he just tends to be in the center on a lot of things. And so I kind of wanted to be able to pop into this race and be able to say things like, hey, like gay rights matter, like without question, like we need to support our gay community. People of color matter, unquestionably all the time. We need to support everybody. The environment matters, and so on. And then basically see how the Republican and Democrat react. Are they kind of shying away from certain things or not wanting to talk about certain things? And I'm just kind of hoping to sort of move that dialogue forward in a more progressive way that I don't think it will otherwise.
Okay, so I know this. I know you were running as a Green Party candidate under the Indiana Green Party. That much I do know, audience. I know some things, but you talked about it in just previously. But I want to ask you this question in this way, and maybe you can be a little bit more detailed. You said there's a Democrat in the race. Why? And you said he tends to be more centrist than you are. Was there a decision to run as a Green Party candidate, or have you always been in the Green Party and this is where you decided you had to run?
Yeah, some of both. I mean, not to give a convoluted answer there, but I've often voted Democrat, and I kind of felt like um, I voted green a couple times, sort of depending on the race and when I think it mattered more. And for the presidential elections, I've been leaning towards voting green more in recent elections. Um, but again, I wanted to run as a green. There are 10 key values in the Green Party. And as I sort of had studied them in recent years, they really lined up with the things that I believe in and the way I would want a campaign to go forward. And I had talked to Democrats in the district, and again, they were sort of non-committal about being progressive enough. And so, I looked at that. So it's sort of situational. To me, the Green Party um, is the party for me long term. I still might vote Democrat occasionally as needed or whatever, more for local races and that sort of thing. But as far as the values and where I want my life to be centered around, I view the Green Party as the path that I want to take. So I don't know if that answered that
That
question.
does answer it. Thank you. So you talked about also um, deciding to run. So are you running as a write-in candidate or are you gathering signatures?
I am running as a write-in candidate. I pretty much have been had that approach all along. I mean, very early, I had hoped to be on the ballot, but I've had great guidance from the state Green Party and other people, and um, you have to. You probably already know this, but you have to have 2% of the people who voted in the last election for Secretary of State in your district. You have to get that many people signatures. So for my district, it would be, depending on the exact citizen count, it's somewhere between 15 and 25,000 signatures, which is basically impossible. The Democrats and Republicans don't have to do that, of course. And so, what people sometimes try to do in national politics and in other places is they try to hire out people to gather signatures and that sort of thing. And again, those have to be verifiable signatures too, not just anybody who says that they're in the district. So I knew right away that path would eat up all of the money and all of the time. And I didn't want to approach politics like that. I wanted to stay focused on the real the values and the content of what we needed to work on as Hoosiers.
Okay, so you've talked about the fact that you're a write-in candidate and you're not on the ballot. Obviously, in my opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, my assumption is obviously it's easier to be on the ballot because you're right there and people can vote for you. But because of probably finances, because it takes finances to, move volunteers. You have to have enough volunteers to gather signatures. You have to make sure that the signatures are valid, et cetera, et cetera. But talk about the, and you may not have faced any, but talk about the challenges when your campaign is going out and talking to the everyday voter and how you get them to say, okay, on November 8th, this is how my name is spelled. I want you to write it just like this, and we can win this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how it's going to play out on election day for sure, but I've been surprised at how many people have been supportive. Actually, when I talk one on one with people, it's almost everybody, and even people who are conservative leaning. I know that sometimes conservatives are in the Green Party, but um, it's been people have been really supportive, and I think the big challenge is just sort of reminding people right before election day, like you said, like how to spell my name, how to do a write-in ballot. And even then, I mean, there's a lot of research on this. Even then, a lot of the people who really want to vote for me are going to forget or get worried it's not going to be counted or whatever, and they're just not going to vote. Um, but I kind of understand the statistical side of that. I think whatever number of votes come in for Jacob Bailey for Congress, that it will be representative of a larger number of people who would have voted for the campaign if it was more attainable.
Exactly. And when you're out campaigning, how much media coverage are you getting? Are you getting fairly little, medium? I know there's always room for improvement in terms of a third party candidate getting media coverage, but how is that? And have you been invited to debates or town halls, or how's that all going?
Yeah, that's been a mixed bag. I haven't been super surprised. I've been frustrated by certain things. The local newspaper has been non-responsive. There's probably been, I don't know, 7 to 10 emails over the last year that have gone completely unanswered. I know newspapers are fading away and they're understaffed and all that. Um, and there's been a little bit of response from radio stations, but not much. Uh, the the debates, I mean, it's kind of strange to me. I never thought it would be this way, but the major party candidates have been extremely quiet, even though we're less than 2 months away from election. Um, both have been extremely quiet. There has not been even talk about a debate between them. There have not been a lot of, even like kind of old school stuff like yard signs and bumper stickers and all that kind of stuff. It's been extremely quiet, which, I'm pretty much, I think that really favors the Republican in the district. So it's been mixed. I've been really happy with social media. I think, that sort of started off with a lot of people that I've had connections with just as a peace activist. So there's like the Bloomington Peace Action Coalition, and there are other groups that have been supportive, and many individuals. Um, so I figured that having almost no money, that social media was the best chance anyway. So I tried to focus on that. I've got a YouTube channel and a Facebook, and we've tried to do that. We're going to be putting out a YouTube ad with the last little bit of money that we have leading up to Election Day. So I haven't felt like people have been, I know sometimes third-party candidates can become kind of jaded and feel really like purposely left out of everything. I don't have that sort of negativity. I think it's mostly just the political machine that's controlled by money that controls it. I don't have any ill will towards individuals. But, my campaign is working with $1,000. And the traditionally in this district, the Democrats and the Republicans have been, and the last number of cycles have been spending $1.2, $1.3 million per each campaign.
And you literally just said my car payment and my house payment. I mean my apartment payment. And that's one of the reasons I started this show, because and I'm gonna go on a wild tangent here, but I will eventually end up with a question, I promise. One of the things that frustrates me about is not the candidate, but the people behind them seem to not realize why we don't want, to take corporation money and dark money and those type of things. It still takes money to run a race. Now, no, we don't want to spend 14 or $15 million, but you know what? A good $25,000 would give. I'm sure it would give you some other options than social media. So I would like you to talk more. It may not even be a question I'm asking, but just talk more about how do we get people, especially on the left side of politics, to realize, hey, it actually takes money to run. Now, no, we're not saying it's going to take hundreds of millions that the Democrats and Republicans spent, because clearly they have the money. We have the voices, but then the voices we need to figure out how to get those voices to financially support. How do you go about doing that? Maybe it's not in this race, maybe it's in the next race or the next race after that, but how do you start that in your area?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big questions of the day for sure. I don't totally know, but it's interesting. So many of these people I talk to, they really love the idea that the Green Party doesn't take corporate money. They really hate the idea that the Democrats and Republicans spend so much money when we've got homelessness and, there's people not eating enough and all these healthcare issues and so many other issues. And we're spending all this huge amount of money just to promote some candidate. So almost everybody doesn't like that. I mean, basically everybody doesn't like that, and yet we just keep doing it, cycle and cycle, and it seems to be kind of getting worse. It seems like it gets out of control. Some candidates run under the sort of the guise that they're going to promote campaign refinance, but then they never get anything done when they get into office. Um,
I'm
so
like,
it's
you're joking, right? No, I'm being completely sarcastic. Get rid of Citizen United. Okay, get rid of the filibuster. So I'm going off on a tangent. Continue to answer your question. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think that I would I would love to see it where no candidate has to spend very much, and um, maybe it's a tiny cap. I mean, I would love to see it not even 25,000. I'd love it to see it maybe 5,000 or something, or maybe even less. I don't know, where people can truly just vote with their voice and their word of mouth and everything. But I don't know how to get out of that cycle that we're in. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I think a lot of voters, I think we've seen it, the easiest analogy for this, and I'm sure you already know this, but the U.S. presidential votes have been a lot about fear. For a number of cycles now, voters have just voted out of, some people voted for Trump because they feared the economy would go down otherwise. Some people voted for Hillary because they hated Trump, and people voted for Biden because they didn't want Trump to win again. And there's a lot of that, and none of it's productive. It's people, millions and tens of millions, huge numbers of Americans voting out of fear instead of optimism, and it's really hurting our country.
Yeah, you just really got into a question I was hoping you would never address, and that is the whole issue of people voting against their own interests. I mean, I've talked to so many people for Medicare for All, for a Green New Deal, for student loan debt elimination. And of course, I pointed out, audience, I'm going to be 100% open here. I voted for Howie Hawkins because he supported, well, after Bernie didn't get the nomination, I voted for Howie Hawkins because he supported those things. And people will say, no, I'm going to vote for Biden. And I'm like, but wait a minute, we both agree that he's not for those things that we just said, or he hasn't advocated enough for those, especially Medicare for All that he said he would veto. So why are you voting for him? Well, because he can win. And I wish I was a better speaker because I could address, when you vote for somebody just because they're going to win, you actually end up losing. I wish I was better at communicating that, but I don't know how to get people out of voting that way because I think that has a lot to do with media coverage. It does has a lot to do with how much dark money is coming into both parties. It has a lot to do with apathy. If you talk to a person that doesn't vote and ask them why, the reasons that they don't vote, they make a lot of sense to me. I mean, literally, they're both the same, which they are right. Both the Democrats and Republicans are the same. It's just crossing that bridge to get them to see, okay, you realize that the Democrats are the same, the Republicans are the same. So now here's a third option. And getting them to that third option is where I want this show to really get out candidates like you that are running as a better option. Not just a third, you're not just running to just run for the sake of running, which frustrates me about some third party candidates. But it seems to me, and I could be wrong, that you're running to make an impact. So my next question, and I knew I was going to eventually get to it, when you win, because I never like to say if. I always say win because if you speak win, you'll act like win, and then you'll function as when you win. What three top agenda items that you want to address that are facing your district?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, I love your phrasing of winning. I and I won't go into this a whole bunch, but I already feel like I've won in a number of ways. I'm very thankful for the impact that this campaign's already been having. So, there's a lot of ways to win, and I'm thankful for that. Um, the top three things, I think when you think about the ninth district in Indiana and most of Indiana, maybe not the district where you're in completely, but most of it is rural and farming communities. And so I think a common ground for a lot of Hoosiers could be the environment. And caring for the environment is, a top part of the Green Party. And a lot of Hoosiers care about the environment when you talk to them about it, and farmers care about the environment. They don't use the same messaging sometimes or the same phrasing, um, but if you talk to a farmer enough about their corn and soybean crops, they're gonna talk about the water that they're getting, and they're gonna talk about topsoil and loss of topsoil, and their concerns about the herbicides and pesticides. These things come up in conversation with farmers pretty much within the first couple minutes that you talk to them. And I think this is one of the many issues where it's like it's kind of acted like we're on different ends of things. It's like the environmentalists are going to hurt the farmers, and I don't feel that way. I think there's a common ground there where actually by taking care of the environment, we can help the farmers. We can actually promote great crops and healthier ground that helps generations of farmers ahead, not just the current farmers. And I feel like when you talk to people, they generally agree with that. Um, so that's one, the environment. Another one would be, I mean, this is pretty broad, but social justice. I know that there's certainly pockets of Indiana where people are fairly uneducated, and it's kind of hard to communicate about some of the social justice issues of the day. Um, but generally, most people, again, are good. Even the people that are a little bit demonized as being, Republican or conservative. I don't find, I mean, I certainly know conservatives, and for by and large, there's been great generational change just from my grandma's generation to now, and I think that social justice for people that are disadvantaged, and for example, I think can be a real common ground point too. And like I said, there's going to be some people that disagree with, say, gay rights. I've had people, very much opposed to the idea that I've got a pride flag on my yard signs and bumper stickers, but mostly not anymore. Mostly people are super supportive with that, and I think that instead of shying away from those issues, mostly in the ninth district, people just want to argue about abortion. If you if you don't shy away from gay rights, for example, then I think it's great. I think we're ready. I think Hoosiers are better people than they get than the nation gives them credit for. And I think we're ready to really turn some of those corners and make things more progressive. Um, and then I guess the third would be what we were talking about before, about just making sure that grassroots democracy is functioning and starting to rise and be more effective, and um, taking the money and the dirty money out of the major parties, and kind of evening the political landscape.
So you did not bring up one issue that a lot of people have been bringing up. You maybe addressed it, but I didn't hear it. And that's um, the laws that, especially in Indiana, Indiana is now, abortion is pretty much illegal in Indiana. And there's talk from, I believe it was Senator Lindsey Graham talked about a national ban. And of course, if you're once you're there in Congress, that's going to be something um, of concern. And I know you're in that area where maybe that's not an issue, and maybe it's more of an issue for me because I'm in a district that's highly affected by women not having the choice. But if you could talk about overall how you would be an advocate for women who are seeking healthcare services.
Yeah, well, that's something. I mean, to start with, I'll probably seek the advice and guidance from all the great women in my life. But um, I think, I mean, I'm pro-choice. I have no problem saying that. I don't mix words with that. Um, and that really stems from the idea in my mind that I generally believe science and I generally believe doctors, and of course women. So I don't really feel like, you know, I feel like being pro-choice is kind of an obvious thing from my point of view because science, doctors and women all say that being pro-choice is the best option there. I do, however, I mean, I definitely see why it's a hot topic and difficult and challenging. I think that it's, sometimes those of us that are pretty left leaning are demonized because people act like we like want abortions, or we think that abortions should happen, or it's okay to just sort of willy-nilly do them all the time whenever we want, whatever term of the pregnancy. Just, they think that we're just, we're sort of unfairly viewed as these monsters that just want abortion all the time. And that's not true. People, the people I talk to, including myself, don't like it. It's not a thing that we like that it happens. But generally, we want to we understand that it's more complicated than that. Sometimes the life of the mother is at stake. Sometimes it has to do with how the baby's doing and what their quality of life could be. Sometimes it has to do with rape or incest or some of the other difficult issues of the day. And so, that's why overall, like, to me, to be in U.S. Congress, it's very easy to just vote pro-choice, and I can tell all the constituents that, and just do it over and over again. And even if it doesn't always win, like I sort of said to start with, you just stick with your values and don't give up.
Thank you for clarifying that. I also wanted to talk about my next question is this. Um, how many volunteers do you have currently?
Well, it changes a lot. I mean, people, a lot of younger people. I'd say it's not a big campaign. I would say there's probably um, at any one time 10 to 20 people helping with things.
Okay,
Um,
so that's a good solid number for that side. So what I am getting to is to ask this: when assuming that you meet with the volunteers for the campaign, do you all do door to door canvassing? Do you set up at festivals, art shows? What type of mechanisms are you using to reach the public in the ninth district?
yeah. Well, so again, I don't know, for sure. I don't think anybody totally knows the perfect method to do this as a third party candidate. But what we have been doing has been not going door to door. We kind of decided that we're, with such a small amount of money and time and people power, that would be inefficient and sort of almost end up in a net loss as far as time. And um, so I would say probably festivals and events that have, thousands of people involved has been more of the focus. We went to Bloomington Pride Fest. What was that? Maybe 3 weeks ago or something, and that was great. I don't know how many people were listed there. I think I heard Fort Wayne had maybe over 100,000 people at their Pride Festival, and Bloomington maybe I bet it was over 10,000, maybe quite a bit more. It was packed. It was a great weekend, a lot of visibility. Um, and so, that kind of thing has been probably the most effective. We've also been to a lot of various rallies. So we did a lot of the women's rights rallies after Roe v. Wade dropped. And then we did, we've, for a while, even before the candidacy, we've been at the peace rallies that in Bloomington, especially, we've done them at the courthouse square that happen every Wednesday. They've happened every Wednesday evening since 2003 or so, something like that. So we do that kind of thing. I don't think that gets a ton of visibility, but we still have our signs up that say Jacob Bailey for Congress, and we try.
Yep. And to those who are watching, please drop your questions in the comment section. I'm sure that Jacob would be just really pleased to answer those questions. I know I have more questions, but I want to give the audience a chance to chime in here. I want you to talk about your opponents for a moment here. I know you talked about the area is highly conservative, and on paper, the Republican stands the best chance of winning the office. Then followed by a corporatist Democrat second. Is there a libertarian running in that same race?
Actually, I'm not 100% sure. If they are, it's extremely quiet. I haven't heard of that.
Okay, so what would you say? And we're just talking about the Republican because you previously had already talked about the Democrat. What is it? And I'm assuming this is a male or is it female?
Is a female.
Okay, so what is it that she's missing, but you could provide once in Congress?
Yeah. Well, first off, for any of the candidates, nothing for me is ever personal. I have messaged with other candidates, but I have never even met them in person. So, nothing on them personally. Her name is Erin Houchin, I think is how you pronounce it. She's from Seymour, and she's been in the state Senate or Congress. She's been in state government. Kind of forget which part of that. And Seymour is, extremely conservative, a lot more conservative than Bloomington, certainly. And from what I can tell, and again, I'm sure I don't see everything, but from what it seems like to be, is that she's almost entirely talking about being pro-life. And generally, that's what the research suggests allows a Republican to win in Indiana and a lot of other places, that if you just stay on that one topic, you'll win. And so it seems like that's what she's doing. Because I don't hear much content out of that campaign about helping farmers and helping build up, more jobs. And a lot of people talk about the I-69 corridor south of Indy to Evansville as being a biomedical corridor. Places like Cook and Baxter and those kind of companies coming in. And I don't hear a lot of that. Well, actually, I've heard none of that. So I think that they're basically just kind of going for the slam dunk and sticking with the pro-life theme. And that's so, I mean, there's a lot of things missing there. If I've heard it all, then they're not talking about the environment or social justice or peace or any of these things. I don't hear any of that. And I feel like, the Democrat, again, he probably is some, but it's very quiet, is not talking about those things either. So, it's just been super quiet and subdued and lacking this kind of energy that you would like to have in a vigorous sort of debate and conversation.
Okay, and if you could wave a magic wand and your campaign could get just one item, one thing that you absolutely would love to have, what would that item be and why did you choose it?
Like an actual physical item? Is that
It
what you
could be a
mean?
physical, it could be mental, it could be spiritual, it could be any level. But what item, if you could just wave a magic wand and say, I want Medicare for all, or I want
Yeah.
more volunteers, or I want $2 million in my campaign, whatever that item is.
Well, that's a great question. I've never thought about that before. I'd say just off the cuff, I would say that the material things aren't as important as the content of the campaign. And so I guess what I'd want is for my voice and these ideas that you and I have been talking about, I'd want them to be universally heard in the district, because I don't think right now people throughout a lot of the district even know that I'm running. And I think that I just wish that, like, when we get to election day, that it's okay if more people vote Republican or Democrat and not me. Like, I under whatever but I wish that that could be because of what they believed in, what they really cared about. um, and I don't think that's the case. I think they're just going to vote the way they always vote. And so I guess that would be it, like some sort of social media platform or some sort of ability to just be heard a little bit by everybody.
Okay, great. And I know you're running. You stated this before, and that you're running as a Green Party candidate. How much of support has the local Green Party been to your campaign, and talk about how important that is to you?
Well, really, we don't have an organized local Green Party in Monroe County. That's one of the things we're looking at maybe starting up and getting going. The state Green Party's been very supportive. David Wetter, who you had on last week, has been great. And other people with the party have been really supportive and kind, and they've given me a lot of suggestions and kind of pointed out little areas that I've tripped on or little mistakes I've made. But locally, there's not officially a Green Party. Now, there's plenty of people that view themselves as Greens, but they're not. It's not an organized thing.
Okay, and we'll get to your platforms here in just a moment. So I wanted to get back on to, oh boy, I just lost that question. It was just there. So I wanted to get back to something you were saying in terms of, well, no, I'll ask the question in this way. So a lot of times when we hear, um, and I'm talking nationally, not state, I'm not like local in the ninth district or even the state of Indiana. I'm talking about on the federal level. I often hear politicians say, "I want to work across the aisle." Do you see yourself more in that way, or do you see yourself in, I'm not, I will only work with those who want to work with me? Would you reach across and work with a Republican, or would you be, or a Democrat, because you would be coming in as an independent? How do you how do you balance that? Because in my view, there's certain parties that I just can't see working with because they are just so against my values. And so, in other words, I'll just say the Republican Party. If you vote against voters' rights, why am I working with you? You've already proven you don't want people of color to vote. Now, that's my opinion. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty much right. Um, so, would you come in saying, I'll work with the Democrats or the Republicans, or are you just going to be like, I'm going to raise as much trouble as I can. I'm going to protest in front of Nancy Pelosi's office. I'm going to get arrested outside for confronting Chuck Schumer. How would you go about actually governing in a way
Yeah.
that would be effective?
Yeah. Well, I would like to think that I could reach across the aisle. That's part of my peace education background. I believe that there are ways that you can do that without compromising your values. I'm not willing to compromise my values and to give up on the things that the Green Party or myself believe in. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't talk to other people. I think it's really important in our society we talk to people who are pretty different from us and that we don't agree with and that we find a little difficult to talk with. I think those are the people we do need to be working on, and in a kind way. A lot of times in our society, I feel like kindness and politeness is viewed as a weakness. I don't view it that way. I view it as an actual a great strength. And I think if you approach people with kindness and dignity, um, you can make little cracks in the granite. that you need to make sort of forward movement. So I wouldn't close. I think you have to be careful about it, but I wouldn't close all any doors. I would just, um, for example, I would, if the Republicans, like they have done, have um, restricted voter access, I would be willing to say that, but I would look at the voting records and I would see, hey, here's a couple Republicans who didn't vote that way, or maybe I'll talk to them, or here's some people that had questions and weren't real strong in it, or they were unsure, or maybe I felt like they weren't educated about it, or maybe they were misled, and I'll talk to them and again in a kind and peaceful way, and try to slowly get them thinking in a different ways. And I feel like that's actually more effective long term for a lot of us than just being with people that already agree with my points of view. So, yeah, absolutely. Reaching across the aisle is important, but doing it without giving up the values.
And see, Jacob gave a more diplomatic answer than myself because that's why I don't feel like I should run for office because I'm definitely like, nope, I'm going in there, I'm going to blaze every trail, I'm going to do this. Yeah, I'm more of the confrontive person or combative person. That's my personality, but what you said makes perfect logical sense.
We need all types to to be moving things forward.
Um,
So no worries.
I did want to make this little plug while I have the time, and I'll get to my last question. We are desperately needing a guest for September the 27th. I do not have a guest for September the 27th. If you are out there and you are running for office, if you know someone that's running as a third party candidate, email me at tracymediallc@gmail.com because I need a guest for the 27th. I do not have anyone. I had people for October, but that's the only date that I am missing. Um, and I really need someone because I know Jacob's probably not going to want to come back, and David's not going to probably want to come back because they were just on here. Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't speak for them, but I really needed a guest. I don't want to do this show solo because I definitely enjoy speaking to candidates, learning about their campaign. But again, if you know of someone, please, 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 please email me at tracymediallc@gmail.com as soon as possible so I can make contact with that campaign and I can have someone. Otherwise, I may have to say, Jacob and David, could you both come on that day and have me talk to you both, even though I know you both have been on and they really don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. So if you're out there, help me, please. Um, I wanted to get to, um, you definitely pointed out a lot of campaign things that you're doing. But I always, well, this is my second show, so I always want to think about the personal sacrifices that you're making. I'm sure campaigning is taking away time from your friends, your family, hobbies that you would love to do if you weren't running for office. Talk about the physical and mental toll that running for office can take and some of the ways you've tried to alleviate those.
Yeah, I think I got to say that's a really cool question. I don't hear anybody else asking such a important question. That's great. Yeah, I mean, again, I've been sort of navigating this as I've gone along. I've really tried to always, like with everything in life, put my family first, and my kids and wife, and just my parents and all of the family first. And I think I've mostly done that. They probably get tired of me talking about politics sometimes, but I've mostly navigated that. I knew it'd be a lot. I tried to sort of substitute some of my like my other activism things a little bit with the campaign. So like I had been in just a small thing. I'd been in a bar book club for a while, and I kind of slowed down with that. I told everybody, hey, the next 6 months I need to be campaigning. And so I kind of stepped back from some things I was doing anyway, just for the temporary part of my life. So some of it was kind of thought out and part of the strategy, but absolutely some of it has hit pretty hard. I wish I had more time um, to do more. I can't believe some people campaign without having other jobs. For example, like I work, full time in an elementary classroom, and that's a lot. And then I have my family and everything to take care of. So um, some people campaign and they just have every day, all week, all month, the whole election season to work on their campaign.
Yeah,
And
and their jobs are always consultant. I'm like, well, what are you consulting? Because it doesn't see, not that they're, you earn money however you earn money. It's America. You get, you're free to earn money in a legal way. I always will say in a legal way, but it does seem like a lot of politicians and the Republicans, because that's what I call them, it's like that's what you do. You don't win this office, so you run for that office. And you don't win this office, so you run for the next one. It's like, okay, do you actually drive to a building, walk in there, punch a clock, and then come back home? Do you have a family? Do you spend time with that family? Do you eat Sunday dinner? What is it that it seems like you're always campaigning? And so I'm glad to hear you have that outside extension, because without it, I'm pretty sure you would just be like, I can't.
yeah, it's been challenging for sure, but absolutely, they've been really supportive. And um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's been a decent balance, just because I keep working at protecting sort of some of my time and family. But I could see, career politicians and stuff. I just think it would be really rough on a family to just constantly be running and constantly fighting through that.
And constantly raising money and constantly going to dinners and constantly, well, I don't want to call it selling out. I'll put it in a more professional tone. Exchanging votes for bribes. See, I still can't do it. I still can't do it. I try so hard. I try so hard and I can't seem to do it. Um, I want to, before I have David to give, I'm sorry, before I have Jacob to give out his platform information, I definitely want you all to contribute to his campaign. I'm sure with $1,000, he could use 1,000 more. He could use 2,000 more. He shied away from the 25,000 that I have said, but he's not going to turn it down if people just have an outpouring of support. But his campaign definitely needs finances and volunteers to get this election day is only, let's see, a month, almost less
It's,
than 2 months away. It's
yeah.
November the 8th. So please support Jacob's campaign. And Jacob, tell us how we can support your campaign.
Yeah, well, basically, just look for Jacob Bailey for Congress. That's what it is on Facebook. It's what it is on YouTube. And then we have a GoFundMe account for taking in donations that also is the same name. So I think if you search up Jacob Bailey for Congress, you can find us. And yeah, any sort of, if you don't have the money, that's okay. We just need word of mouth to get people out there talking about the campaign as much as possible. So I know there's a lot of people on their phones and devices with a little bit of time, and you can do a lot just on social media, and we'd really appreciate it.
I want to thank Jacob so much. I kind of veered off to the right there, and I appreciate you coming on here to talk to me. Again, I definitely want you all to support Jacob in his run. My only clarifying question is that the number four or the word FOR?
Both should work. I've tried both, but the
Okay,
number four is,
okay.
I think, even more
But
accurate.
you
Yeah,
don't have a designated website, is that correct?
that's right. Not a website. Nope.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
was correct in not putting it. Okay, so I definitely want to thank you, Jacob, for coming on. Remember, everyone, please, 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 I need a guest for September the 22nd. Please, I'm like doing this. Please email me at tracymediallc@gmail.com. I will be joined next week by Countess Every, who is running for governor of the state of Tennessee. So she will be my first female guest, and she will be my first guest outside the state of Indiana. But I'm definitely looking forward to that. Of course, you can follow Jacob Bailey for Congress, and you'll be able to find him on all social platforms. Remember to like this video, share this video, please comment because all of those things get us higher in the algorithm. It's important that we get out there and remember if you keep voting the same, you're going to get the same results. You need to vote different to get something different. Keep that in mind. We'll see you next Tuesday and have a great day.